Welcome everyone back to another episode of Trendz, here brought to you by Inner Sanctum. First thing, if you can like this video, and if you are not, please make sure you are subscribed and turn the notification bell on so you can stay up to date with all your independent Australian sporting content. And today we're taking a look at a much talked about coaching change and how it worked out for round one, and that is St Kilda and the return of Ross the Boss. And let's take a look. St Kilda, last year they were 10th in the ladder, currently ranked 11th in experience and games played. And very interesting last year was a very focus on a kick mark game style. That was a staple of St Kilda's football club, and kind of a throwback to Ratton's game style. He likes to have that ball controlled and likes to really retain the kind of inconsequentials in the AFL game. They came up against Fremantle Dockers this time round, and Ross's side has been real talked about of that one-dimensional, boring football that Ross plays. They won by 15 points, and Ross has been very firm in the press that he's a changed man. And genuinely, you'd expect to see so. Ross is a very intelligent football coach. You can say what you want about him, but one thing that is a staple of Ross's game plans is his almost monotonous commitment to the basics. And one thing we saw that was new was this real fast-paced play on football, which probably isn't synonymous with Ross's game style. He flooded the corridor and he attacked it hard. Fierce defence, second and third efforts. We know Ross prioritises effort over talent, and that was really on show. And people are forgetting that St Kilda had a decimated forward line. And through the basics and then real, almost intrinsic values that Ross has on it, you saw Fremantle come unstuck, particularly with that corridor usage. But there's a few players I want to pick on and have a look at who I think may be something that we're going to see quite a lot of. And the first guy we're going to look at is Mason Wood. Let's look at him last year of what we know. 19 games played, 29 years of old now, wingman, 28th wingman, interesting enough. And he fits the bill, doesn't he, for what Ross was building. And if you watched how they played, they had a real good two-gear change. They had their control, but then they had their fast attack. And Mason Wood, for me, was impeccable in this, particularly being that taller ruckman. And if you look at how he played this game, the 20 touches, the 6 marks, the 4 tackles, the 4 inside 50s, 2 goals won, and 7 score involvements. And although they really attacked the corridor hard with a real handball-heavy game plan when they did go there, their exit ball was down the flanks. And particularly down this wing where Mason was, he was constantly presenting, constantly giving them that safe outlet ball. And it needs to be remembered, Mason was playing as that second, third forward at North before the change. This is a huge thing here, and I really like this for them. And I think this is really in vogue. We talk about trends here and what is trending. That medium taller wingman is a huge thing, and we've seen a lot of clubs try and find it. You've seen Blakey play there for Sydney. You've seen Nick Cox for Essendon. Do you know what I mean? Will Oskin-Elliott floats there for the Pies. It's a very in vogue thing. It's a very in vogue thing. And what it does is it creates stability. It allows St Kilda particularly to play a key forward in the goals. A lot of teams manufacture this with their key forwards coming down there. Mason Wood allows them to have a target for the second kick and the third kick in the chain. And he was really, really sensational. I really enjoyed his game, along with Ryan Burns as well, who played. These two really worked hard in defence as well as attack. The other guy that I think will be a real key here, and a guy that probably plays his football in the Ross mould, and that is he does the basics well. Brad Crouch, 21 games last year, again 29 years old, and made 54th last year. And this game here for me really showed why Brad Crouch is important in a system. Kind of a bit like Tom Mitchell doesn't get the praise, and we talked about him last week on Trendz. Lo and behold, it came true. Collingwood were dominant around the contest. He does the simple things well. He's a real conduit, a real metronome from defence to attack. Controls the pace of the game. 30 touches, and again, look, high handball rates. He was hitting his runners. He was hitting your Millwarers. He was hitting them type of players, really trying to get some energy into the game. To Jack Sinclair bursting through, who we'll talk about late. 4 tackles, 4 clearances, 2 stoppage clearances, 3 score involvements. A real stable rock in that middle part of the ground, who just kept the ball moving, slowed it down when he needed to, injected the pace when he needed to. A real pivot in this St Kilda side, and someone that I think it needs to be really, really drilled home. They had no forward line. These guys were, their pillars were either first gamers in Anthony, who did incredibly well, and also their smalls, and they worked really hard. And Brad Crouch really allowed them time to get forward or drop back when needed, and that was very important. A guy that we've talked about a lot is Jay Gresham. For me, one of the most untapped talent players in the competition. 18 games last year, 25. He's coming now into his peak, where we're looking at his best years. 32nd for that mid-forward role last year. And this game here really showed, because he was just about everywhere, particularly in that final third. Really bursting outside and helping his midfield, and then getting ahead, playing that give and get. And it was a real solid performance from Gresham. And I reckon the AFL will take note of this, because this guy here could really be a threat. The 17 touches, the 4 marks, 2 tackles, 2 well-taken goals. Could have been more as well. 2 inside 50s, 5 score involvements. He is the X factor, I think, in that forward line. And he's a very industrious player as well, which Ross will like. But his willingness to sacrifice his own best scoring positions to help enact the attacking phase of the game is really understated. And I fear for the AFL here, because the AFL comp, because I think this guy is an incredibly talented footballer, and what I think will flourish under the simplistic nature of Ross's game plan. And that's not a knock. A lot of people would say that's a knock. Ross understands the basics of football. Jack Sinclair is a guy here that really, I thought, drove that quickness, particularly in defence. 28 years old now, 22 games last year. Gen defender, 4th rankings in Trendz. One of their X-rated players. Do you know what I mean? This guy does everything that you pay money to see. You pay a lot of money to see players like this. 26 touches, 4 marks, 4 bounces. Love that play on. 10 rebound 50s, 3 stoppage clearances. A lot more used in them defensive stoppages, and you saw the skill level of his ability to not just kick it out, but also drive the ball out and get them going forward and get them on the front foot. And Sinclair, for me, will have a career best year under Ross. You saw Stocker as well, who worked really industriously on the defensive side of the play. Cal Wilkie did incredibly well as well. A lot of them did, but Sinclair is that touch of class, that aggressive transition that we talk about a lot in football. It's a real big thing. And you really saw here their ability to go through the corridor, which was primarily set up by this gentleman. This is what he does well. He gets the ball out there and gets it there. And a big part of this was 34 points were scored from turnover. Do you know what I mean? And it was him getting that intercept and getting it up there. 18 points scored from defensive 50 chains. This is where Sinclair comes in. Big numbers for them, considering their score, and someone that I think, in a game that is transition football, scoring when the ball is hot, Jack Sinclair is someone that Ross will be turning to. A guy that really stood out, and Sheasel rightly will get the kudos, he got the Rising Star nomination, was this gentleman here, Mateus Philippou. 18 years old, forward, obviously not ranked because of a draftee. And this was a real eye-opener for me of what this kid can do. His ability to really come up high half forward, be that stoppage, did a lot of smart things. A lot of score involvements as well. 6 was always in the mix, looking to make something happen. And if this guy acclimatizes to AFL, a lot has been talked, wrongly in my opinion, about a perceived arrogance. You saw why this kid is good. He didn't look out of place. Him and Sheasel, for me, were two of the players that really looked like they belonged at this level and looked more like seasoned performers. Took his goal well, 81% efficiency as well. He used the ball well when he got it. The 3 marks, and he's got an incredible football IQ, and it was really poignant. And this is going to be a big one for me because I reckon he can go big. He's going to be a very, very solid performer, and he was my pick for the Rising Star. And I liked his start here. I thought he worked hard, he fought hard, and he does the right things at the right time. And we'll finish with the probably the brand name from St Kilda, Jack Steele. And it's funny because Ross likes his captains to lead. That's first and foremost with Ross. 27 years old, 21st best mid on the Trendz ranking, 80 games last year. Jack Steele is everything that Ross wants in an inside mid. 28 touches, 5 marks, 3 tackles, 5 clearances, 4 of them stoppages, 575 metres gained as well. He gets the ball moving forward. He's tough. He's combative. He's a very, very accomplished footballer. And I think the way that he played this week, he built into it. He didn't have to do the unthinkable. He did the simple things. He spread the play well. He won the ball back, got it onto his outside. Jack Steele will be a guy that will really flourish playing for Ross the Boss. So that is St Kilda, a team to look out for here because they've just beat a top 8 side with 0 forwards. They are going to be definitely a team that, because they're rigid and very compact and this aggressive corridor football, which is becoming the norm, Collingwood deploy it. Do you know what I mean? We saw the devastation of that. They've got the players to play this as well. They've got a real nice makeup for Ross to instill in this list. With players to come back, like your Membries and your Max Kings later in the year, that will show that up. And when they've got some primary targets, look out, because you could see Rowan Marshall really enjoyed this game style as well. But St Kilda are the feature on Trendz. How did you see St Kilda's game? Is it sustainable? In my opinion, it's incredibly sustainable. And until next week, look after yourself. Trendz out.